Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of social control. The social control is the most important topic for the all class and all competitive exam here. You know that social control refer here, the term social control refer to be social process by which the behavior of individual or group is regulated. You know that the important behavior of individual or group is regulated here. Society is a humorous is organization of human being and expected to perform their function accordingly here. That's important. In order to exist and progress, society has to exercise contain control over its member. Such a controls are the term as a social control. That's important. There is a exercise a contain control over this member. Such a controls are termed as a social control. Consequently, social control is a pervasive features of any society. That's important. Consequently, social control is a pervasive feature of any society, and social control help to the restrain the unwanted behavior of the individual and the group. That's important point here. Social control help to the restrain the unwanted behavior. Unwanted behavior here, individual and the group. It is an influence exercised by society for promoting the welfare of the group as a whole. That's important. Social control varies from one society to another because each society has its own rules. That's important point here. Social control varies from one society to another because each society has its own rules and norms. Different types of society like a individualistic society or collectivist society here have a different expectation means role from their member. There is a society here is a two type, individualistic society and here collectivistic society, and they have a different expectation here for the member. Indian culture, value and general standard of life are different from the Western individualistic society, and therefore both the society have a different pattern of social control. You know that's an important point here. Indian culture, value and general standard of life are different from the Western individualistic society, and therefore both society have a different pattern of social control. We emphasis on socialization, whereas a technologically advanced Western society and focus on the individual liberties. That's an important point here. Social control consider a custom. Social control consider here custom, traditional, rituals, rules and sub-rules according to the social demands. That's important. Social control consider here customs, tradition, rituals, rules and sub-rules according to the social demand. Accordingly, in that a particular society, family system, marriage system, positive and negative convention, religions and education system develop here. Members of that particular society should conform this system. Society developed on appreciate social control from that particular society. That's important. Society developed on the appropriate social control from that particular society. Social control theory process data exploiting the process of socialization and social learning, build and self-control and reduce the inclination to be induced in a behavior recognized as a antisocial. It's derived from a functionalist theories of crimes and was developed by Levin Niels 1958, and who proposed that there were three types of control here. You know that Alphonse Nash is a proposed here three types of social control. Let's see three types of social control here. First here, direct control. Direct control mean by which the punishment is the threatened or applied for the wrongful behavior, and complaints is rewarded by the parents, family and authority figure. Directly, there is the most important control here. And the second here, indirect. Indirect mean by the identification with those who is influence behavior, say because there are delinquent act of mind causing a pain and disappointment to the parents and other with whom they have a close relationship. This is indirectly we control here. That's important. And third here, internal control. That's important. Internal control here. Internal control is a process effected by the entirety of board of director, management and other personnels designed to be provide reasonable assurance here, and that information is reliable, accurate and timely of compliance with the applicable law, regulation, contracts, policy and procedure. That's the internal control here. There is a most important three types here control: direct control, indirect control and internal control. Direct control here, there is a control by rule, regulation and law and authorities. And indirectly, the control here family and other persons, that a relationship here. That's important. And internal control here, there is the applicable law, regulation, contract, policy and procedure. There is the board of director, management and other personally designed to the provide responsible here. That's important. Three types of control here. Social control theory process that the people's relationship and commitment, value, norms and belief encourage them not to break the law. You know that's important. The social control theory, there is a proposed as a people relationship, commitment, value, norms and belief or encourage them not to break the law. And thus if you moral coded are internalized and individuals are the tied into one they have a stack, there is a wider community and they will be voluntarily limit their propensities to be common deviant acts. That's important. The theory seeks to be understand the way in which it is possible to reduce the likelihood of criminality developing in individual. That's important here. And it does not be considered motivation issue and simply startings that human beings may be choose to engage in a wide range of activities unless the range is limited by the process of socialization and social learning. That's important here. The theory derives from to the Havison's view of human nature as represented in the Leviathan, that all choices are constrained by the implicit social contracts, agreements and arrangement among two people. That's important that all choose are constrained by the implicit social contract, agreements, and arrangements among the people. Thus, the morality is created in the construction of social order, assigning cost and consequence to be contained, choose and defining some as evil, immoral, immorals, are legal. Social control play a crucial role in providing a more productivities as a humanized community. It's a contribute to the growth of individual and the progressions of the community. For instance, places with the higher crime rates are more likely to be the place where poverty, mobility, and racial, ethnic, heterogeneous and most susceptible. That's important here. The presence of this factor determines the level of the social control within a community, particularly when it is come to the placement of infrastructure. That's important, placement of infrastructure. A higher level of social control is a community can result to an organized community, and that can be lead to the better opportunity in the community. That's important for the exam view here. Next point arrive here, that's important. There is a proponent of social control. You know that that's important here. Proponents of social control. First of all here, proponent here, Albert J. Races. Albert J. Races is the most important thinkers here. Another early form of the theory was proposed by the Races is in 1951, who defined to delinquency as a behavior consequent to the failure of personal and social controls. Personal control was defined as the ability of individual to refrain from a meeting and need in way which conflict with the norms and rules of the community. And where social control was the ability of social groups or institutions to make norms or rules effective. Russell's version did not be specify the resources of such a ability. There is a Races is a versions do not be specify the resources of such a abilities nor the specific control mechanism leading to the conformity, but he did assert that is a failure of primary group such as the family to provide reinforcement for non-delinquent roles and value was the crucially to exploitations of delinquency. That's important delinquency here. Russell also wrote extensive on the application of his work to the criminology. There is most important, Russell also write extensive on the application of his work to criminology. That's important here. Next, proponents here, Jackson Tovey. Jackson Tovey, there's the most important here. Jackson Tovey, 1957, agreed that the uncommitted adolescence is the candidate for a gang socialization. You know that Jackson Tovey a good identity for the social control here, and he say the uncommitted adolescent is the candidate for a gang socialization. Acknowledging a gang socialization as part of the casual motivational dynamic leading to delinquency, but introduce the concept of stack in confirmative to explain. Candidacy for such a learning experience. You know that's important. There is a knowledge here, gang socialization as a part of casual motivational dynamic. That's important here. He believed that all could be attempted into the delinquency, but most refused because they consider that they had too much to lose. That's important line here. Refuse because they consider that they had too much to lose. The young who had few stake or investment in a confirmative were more likely to be driven into gang activity. The gang activity, that's here. The notion of stake in their confirmative fit every well with the concept. Involved in the later version of social control theory. There is important here social control theory. That's important here. The next proponents here F. Ivan Nee. F. Ivan Nee, there is a most important sociologist here. Ivan Nee, 1958, not only elaborate a social control theory of delinquency but specified a way to the operationalized measuring, control or mechanism and related them to be self-report of delinquent behavior. You know that even Nee is a 1950 not a elaborate a social control theory and delinquency but specify way to the operationalize measure control of mechanism and related them to the self-report of delinquent behavior. He formulated the theory after interviewing of 780 young people in Washington state. That's the most important theory given here. They're interviewing here 780 young people in a Washington state. The sample was criticized because it is not to be represent any urban environment. That's important line here. The example was criticized because it does not be represent any urban environments here. And those elected, a mile has been to more up to be described. There is a family unfavorably. There are families is unfavorably here. And somewhere is a concern that is a criminal activity was only mentioned in the two of the question. So the extrapolation to the crime in a journal were to the consider unsafe. Like a racist, there are focus on the family as a source of control. That's important here. Moreover, needs specify three different types of control here. Needs specify the three different types of control. Let's see. First here, direct control. Direct control base of punishment and reward. Direct control, the base here, punishment and reward. Indirect control here, affectionate of identification with a non-criminal. That's important. Indirect control here, a non-criminals here. And the next, internal control. Internal control means conscience of sense of guilty. Internal control here, conscience or sense of guilty. There is a most important even need specify the social control here. The youth may be directly controlled through the constraint imposed by parents and limited their opportunity for delinquents as well as through the parental reward and punishment. That's important here. The young may be directly controlled here, imposed by parents. The limit the opportunity for a delinquency as well as through the parental reward and punishments. However, they may be constant when to free from direct control by their anticipations of parental disapproval. Disapproval they means here indirect control. There is an anticipation of parental disapproval. Although there is a development of conscience and internal constant on their behavior. That's important here. The development of conscience as an internal constant on the behavior. That's important. The focus on the family as a source of control was in a marked contrast to the emphasis on economic substance as a source of criminologic motivation at the time. That's important. The focus on the family as a source of control was a marked contrast to the emphasis on economic substance as a source of criminologic motivation at the time. Though he is a knowledge motivational force by starting that some delinquent behavior result for the a combination of positive learning and weak and ineffective social control. That's important here. There is an ineffective social control here. In 1958, he adopted a control of theory position when he proposed that and most delinquent behavior is the result of insufficient social control. That's important here. The most delinquent behavior is the result of insufficient social control here. Next, proponents here, Tanvis Hirschi. Tanvis Hirschi, that's the most important proponents here. And he say, Travis Hirschi is adopted to the Taoist as a concept. There is a most important Travis Hirschi is a follower here. Taoist. And Taoist concept of investment in a conventionality or stake and conformity, that's important. He stressed the rationality in their decision whether to engage in a crime and agreed that a person was less likely to be choose crime if they had a strong social bond. That's important here because the less likely to choose a crime if they had a strong social bond. That's important. And the next year, the general theory of crime terms HCR. That's important. The general theory of crime proposed by the Tanvis Hirschi. That's important. The Hirschi has a sign a move away from his bonding theory. Hirschi has a sign a move away from his bonding theory, and his cooperations with the matches are Gottfriedson. Cooperation with their matches are Gottfriedson and developed a general theory are self-control theory. You know that is an important theory here. Self-control theory in 1990. Occurs in 1991, agreed that a major weakness of this new theory was the Gottfriedson and Horses did not define self-control and the tendency of toward criminal behavior separately. That's important here. By not deliberately operationalizing a self-control traits and criminal behavior or criminal act, individually it is a suggest that the concept of low self-control and propensity for the criminal behavior are the same. That's important. The criminal behavior or criminal acts, individually it is a suggest that the concept of low self-control and propensity of the criminal behavior are the same. Hirsch's and the Gottfriedson is 1993 reverted occurs is an agreement by the suggesting it was the actually on indications of the consistency of general theory. That's important. That is a theory is internally consistent by the conceptualizing crime and derived from to that is a concept of the offenders and crime. The research community remains divided on the whether there is a general theory is sustainable, but there is a emerging confirmation of some of its prediction. There is example Grange and Silverman in 1999. Next, proponents of Jack P. Gibbs. This is important. The next proponents here, Jack P. Gibbs. Gibbs, 1989 has a redefined to the social control and applied it to be developed a control theory of homicide. They developed a control theory of homicide. Any attempt to be get an individual to do or refrain from doing some things can be considered as attempt at a control. To qualify as a social control, such attempt must be involve three parties. One or more individual intend to be manipulate the behavior of another by or through a third party. James P. Gibbs, this is the most important given theory here. Gibbs' third party can be actually person or reference to society. The Gibbs third party can be actually person or a reference to society, an expectation or norms. For example, if one party attempt to influence another by threatening to be refer the method to a third party assumed to have authority is a referential social control. If one party attempt to control another by punishing a third, example, general deterrence here, and it is a form of recursive social control. The presence of third party instigates a social control for mere external behavior control and simple interpersonal response here. For issue ordered for someone to do something, and this definition clearly distinguishes a social control from where reaction to evidence and from a deviant behavior itself. Gibbs agrees that a homicide can be described either as a control are resulting from a control failure. 1989 and proposed that a homicide rate in the function not just of the sheer volume or depth but also their frequency of recourse to the third party for a peacefully debt settlement. When one person failed to control the action of another thought their third party. Murder represented another violent attempt at a direct control. People resort to be self-help when form of social control are unable or fail. Gibbs is a critical of Hirsch's as a social control and theory because it is a marriage as assume there is a social relationship, personal investment, and belief that is a discourage or delinquency or social control, which is one of reason by the Hirsch's theory is often referred to as the social bond theory. That's important here. Next topic arrive here that's important. And topic here criticism of social control. Criticism of social control that's important. Much of the early research on social control theory is based on the self-reporting study. The self-reporting study they are important. Critics of self-report data note that there is maybe of various motives for disclosing information and that a question may be interpreted differently by the individual participant. Report that is a later 19th century Britain crime rates fell dramatically here, as is drugs and alcohol abuse and illegitimacy because less common. All of these indexes of deviance were a fairly studies is between World War I and 1955. After 1955, they all the rose create a U curve of dementia. And over the period from 1847 to 1997, 1847 to 1947, he attribute the initial shift to adoption of the culture in which there are assumptions of Protestant and Christianities were a take of granted. Everyone at the time believed at least some but in a normal code of helping others. And this belief was rooted in religions and the same social norms for the defense of the person and property that informed the law before 1955 remain their policy norm. Furthermore, the concept that people are uncountably and many often against those norms is a social interaction and cannot be expanded by simply counting how many people practice the golden rule. That's important criticism here. This topic was till this. We will be do their next topic in the next part. If you like it, then please like, share, subscribe, and share the video as much as possible. Do not think, subscribe and save in your mobile.